All right, I'm really excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Brianna McDonald. She is the Northwest Regional President for Keiretsu Forum Northwest. Based in Seattle, Keiretsu Forum Northwest Region is an angel investment network that is part of the largest and most active global venture investor community. That region alone has funded over 500 companies since its 2005 launch. Brianna works closely with companies looking for angel investment and is involved in sales strategy execution, relationship management, and due diligence. She started working in this male-dominated field at the age of 26, not knowing she would soon run one of the world's most active angel groups in the world. Let's hear her story about the journey to be top and what's propelled Keiretsu to be the most active venture investor community in the country. Welcome to Bend and the PubTalk stage, Brianna.
All right. We don't ever use podiums at Keiretsu Forum, so I'm not used to a podium. Hi, everyone. Welcome. How are we doing tonight? Are we doing good? Can I hear? All right. Did Oregon win? Has Oregon played yet? All right. I'll try to make this fast. I know how important it is. I'm rooting for the Pac-12. So how many of you are entrepreneurs in the room? Come on, let me see your hands. Don't be shy. All right, awesome. How many of you are investors in the room? All right. Of those investors, how many of you have made money investing in early stage companies? All right. How many of you have lost money? No one? Oh, you have. Okay. I've made money and lost money investing in companies. For those of you that don't know Keiretsu Forum, we're a collaborative investing group. So we look to work together to support early stage companies, fund the future, and to make smart investment decisions because we don't actually see ourselves as the smartest people in the room. We see leveraging other people's backgrounds and experiences to help make great investment decisions. But before I get to my group and what we do, I'm going to tell a little bit about me, and I will tell you this is a little bit nerve-wracking for me. I'm up on stage a lot, and I work with companies, but I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about them, and it's really fun talking about early-stage companies and asking them questions. So if I'm a little bit nervous and scattered, I have my cheat sheet here. It's just because I have some nerves. So I'd like to thank Brian and the EDCO for having me back. I was able to come out to Bend Venture Conference for the first time in October. It was my first time experiencing Bend. It's a beautiful city. I've heard a lot about it. I look forward to getting my family back here. We have 3 small children, 10, 8, and 4. And we do like to ski, and I snowboard because I'm always the odd man out. But to come back and experience Bend, it's a great city you guys have here. So thank you for having me. So when I was growing up, I did not think one day I was going to run an investment group, ever, not once. I thought I was going to be a teacher. I loved the idea of teaching, and now I get to do that in different ways, not that what I expected at the time. I'm not from the Pacific Northwest originally, surprise, surprise, but I did move here in 1992. My parents relocated to Seattle. My dad was an import-export business, and so I do consider myself a Seattleite and a Pacific Northwesterner. I just don't carry some of the qualities that at least some Seattleites carry. So, and there is a difference. I grew up in Minneapolis, and I swear in a previous life I was born and raised in New York. So, I joke about it. I try to let people know what to expect because I'm always going to shoot you straight no matter what. Because I just don't have time to do anything else. I spent my first 13 years of life in Minneapolis, and it was not fun. I had a very difficult childhood. I was severely bullied for 7 years, and my outlet was dance. And I danced for about a decade there, and what that provided me was a great outlet. It provided me a creative outlet and a community, but what else it provided me was the ability to fail and I had to fail in front of people, and when you fall on your face when you're dancing, the song continues to play. So whatever you choose to do, the good thing is that you just keep moving with the song. But I do believe that those experiences that occurred early in my life set me up for the role that I'm in today, because I didn't let any one moment define me. And if I did, I wouldn't be sitting here. It's taking the good with the bad and trying to always learn and do better, which is what I strive for. My parents, like I said, moved to Seattle in 1992, and I went to high school in a little town outside of Seattle at the time called Issaquah. It's much bigger now. It was very little when I moved there. And went to the University of Washington. Boo. But I got my degree in history in poli-sci. So once again, how am I, this girl who has this history and political science major running an investment group? And it's interesting. It all has to do with access to opportunity. So I've done a lot of research on this over the years. And as much as my parents would say, you are who you hang around with, it's really true. And if you hang around with 9 successful people, chances are you'll be the 10th one. If you hang around with 9 deadbeats, chances are you'll be the next one. So there's a lot of truth to that. And at the University of Washington, I met this guy. He was the president of the frat, and we were just friends at the time. I was dating one of his fraternity brothers. But his name is Nathan McDonald. He's now my husband today. But we were friends for about 6 years, and he was writing a senior paper on angel investing in 1999. And this is a very interesting time frame. There's a lot of capital going into these companies, the stock market's booming, tech is all over the place. It was really exciting, and he was trying to figure out how these companies were getting these funding from individual investors. And it was really a passion point for him. I couldn't figure out what the hell he was doing. I mean, honestly. He took me to all sorts of events. He started a nonprofit in the 2000-ish time frame called the Investment Forum. And so it does a little bit similar thing to what Keiretsu does today. It brings together investors and entrepreneurs to help facilitate the fundraising process. But I went to this winter venture ball in 2001. All of our friends would be like, what does Nathan do? And I'd go, he has coffee with people. They talk about things, and somehow he makes money. I'm not quite sure, what exactly goes on. He's told me about 35 times, and I still don't quite get it. But what he was working on was something really important. And it wasn't until 2005, we were then engaged at that time, that the opportunity came to him to start a Keiretsu Forum in Seattle. And it's a big decision. We're about to get married and launch this business. And I was like, I don't know anything about what you're doing, but if you really believe in it, then I'll believe in you, and we'll call it good. And so what ended up happening is, once again, he kept providing me opportunities to come. As a spouse, I wanted to be supportive of the things he was doing, and so he invited me to the first meeting. And I went, and I sat in this room, and I was 25, and the rest of the room was all middle-aged white men. It's an interesting experience, walking in, being so young. I sold real estate at the time, so after college, I went off on this real estate bender, and I worked with executive realo with Microsoft, and so that was where I initially made my capital to invest. But I sat down at this table, and I'd listened to the first company pitch. And I had this notepad in front of me, and I wrote down, what's your business? What do you do? How do you make money? And I'd look at what I wrote, and I'd look at the people in the room, and I'd sit back. And I'd listen to these men ask the question, what do you do? How do you make money? What is your business? And I'm like, oh, they have the same questions as me. But I still didn't think I belonged there. It doesn't look how it should look. I'm 25 years old. What am I doing here with these really smart business guys? But they keep asking the same questions that I have. It took me about a year to really find my voice. after listening to these questions again and again and again that I would write down and then they would ask, I realized that I might be onto something. Like I might not be as stupid as I think I might be. And I might actually know something about what it is looking at these companies and might be able to contribute. So I raised my hand one day, and it was terrifying. I was scared to death. I mean, I think my hand was like physically shaking as it like hung up in the air as my name was called on, and then afterwards it probably took about 10 minutes for the adrenaline to actually calm down from asking the question. But what happened after I asked the question was the gentleman sitting next to me looked at me and he goes, "That's a really good question." And I was like, oh, okay, like I maybe I should be here. Like maybe I can do this. At that point, I didn't shut up. I kept asking questions, you know, nonstop. Started working on diligence. You know, the thing is I bring to the table something different that no one else brings, and that's my experience. It's my experience as a consumer. It's an experience on how I engage in the marketplace. It's experience on how I look at things, and it might be a little bit more pragmatic than some of the men in the room that actually might know that technology really well. They might be able to provide some insight on a different part of that business than what I'm going to provide insight on. But I realized that I had value. And just because something doesn't look like it should, because it feels like it should, actually is where you find the good. You know, it's that intuition and being able to pull from those things that you know deep down are right and they work as you go forward, whether you're starting a company or investing in a company, however you're you know, engaging into the ecosystem. I am a big believer that intuition is really important with what you do. So one day, a company came through, and some of you may know it. It's called Theo Chocolate. They came through and presented, and the CEO at the time, Joe Winnie, had these amazing confections. Like, screw the bars. I could give a crap about the bars. They had these confections, and there was burnt sugar, and there was lemon, and there was mint, and there was peanut butter and jelly, and they were amazing. And I got to listen to how he was the first organic chocolate maker in the United States. I got to learn how the farmers of cocoa beans are treated with the rest of the chocolate makers, and how they were fair trade and how they were going to provide better wages, how this was organic and it didn't have any chemicals in it. And in 2006, this was cutting edge. Like, you know, as a consumer and being out in the grocery store and shopping, I started seeing more and more organic goods, but it wasn't something that was flooding the shelves like we see today. And I came home that night and I, you know, talked with Nathan about it, and I was like, you know, I think I want to write a check. Like, I think I'm finally ready to do this. And we went through the diligence process and looked at it, and, you know, I loved the team. I loved the passion behind the team. I loved what they stood for. And after some research, and it was pretty early at the time, they didn't have a whole lot of revenue, and, you know, I think that investing has changed dramatically over the last 15 years since initially getting involved. You know, I wrote my first check. And I finally saw a return 2 months ago. So, yay for the return. Woohoo! But it took 12 years. So that, you know, live and learn, right? It was the first check I wrote. And I didn't lose any money on that one, which was great. Lost some money on some other ones along the way. But what it taught me was that, and it took years to actually look back to like figure out like what my investment thesis was, but it's really, I felt so good. Once again, it goes back to those feelings. Like, I felt so good about where my money was going, and I felt like I could make an impact in the world with my capital and help make the world better. And that meant something to me more than investing in a stock market. That meant something to me more than anything else, is that I could actually make the world a better place with my capital and do that. So that launched my, you know, investing. Now we're invested. We have a personal portfolio of about 25 companies. We have 84, maybe more than that now, in our capital fund. over 3 funds, and then we helped facilitate funding in over 100 companies last year, which totaled out to the dollar amount of about $54 million in 78 companies that were actually able to get funding. Because I can't fund them all. We have a 70% funding rate, but that's really high for a lot of investment groups. But I can't fund them all. Not all of them are great. And that happens when you start digging under the hood a little bit and things get a little uncomfortable. But, that's just the way the cookies crumble. So it helped me develop my investment thesis over time. And really, what I came from that, there's a gentleman who started Puget Sound Venture Club in 1985 up in Seattle named Gary Rittner. Some of you guys may know him. He's invested in Howard Schultz early on with Starbucks, but he's had an investment group there before it was cool to have an investment group. And he taught me that you invest in team, team, and team. And that is really everything it boils down to. This is still people. We're still dealing with people. We're still dealing with emotions. We're still dealing with execution and how the people actually do it. And so that's something that, besides diversifying my portfolio, that I've looked at today. So that's a little bit about me and how I came to be. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about what I do. I have been involved with Keiretsu Forum since 2005, since we launched in Seattle. I've been president now just a little over a year, which is exciting. I've had lots of things I've wanted to do with the business over the years, and now I get to start doing them, so that's kind of fun. But I can't speak for previous leaders of the organization, so I can only speak for myself. But I'd like to start out, who here in the room has heard of Keiretsu Forum? Okay, good. All right. Of those people that have heard of Keiretsu Forum, I want to hear from someone. What do we do? I want to hear from you. Anyone? Come on, don't be shy. This is. I do fund startup businesses. What else do I do? What do you know about my business? And you don't have to be kind. It's okay. What do you know about me? Yes.
It seems to be an association of 7 forums around the Northwest.
We have 5 active chapters in the Northwest. That is correct. And then we have so that's what I run, is the 5 active chapters. We do have a Boise chapter, but Boise's still trying to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up. So I love Boise. I love the work that they're doing and the innovation that's coming out of there. We're looking more of a fund structure in Boise. It's better.
What I didn't understand was, how are these different cities all related into your business?
Oh, so the companies go on the road to each one of these cities. So when the companies actually come through our process and present, we take them to 5 cities in 5 days. And we do that 10 months out of the year. So we put them in front of 200 to 250 investors over the course of that week. So it's like a fire hose. Yes?
Keiretsu Forum, as I understand it, takes in applications, so to speak, for new businesses or advancing businesses, screens them, but then for their investor group performs a very deep due diligence package that is owned by the investors that like that company and help to do that due diligence with their disciplines.
It's owned by the entrepreneurs. It's not owned by the investors. The entrepreneurs, so we use the due diligence packet as a de-risking tool to help de-risk the investment for the investors, because if the company is able to go raise all their follow-on capital, that's all good for us after we put capital in. We want them to be able to go out and achieve their milestones with the capital they need. Yes, Roger. Entrepreneurs pay. There was what I was looking for. Thank you for that. Entrepreneurs do pay to come through Keiretsu Forum, but it is not a pay-to-play, and that is something I do want to make clear. So we actually totaled it up for 2017. We actually gave away about 1,400 hours worth of work to companies that actually didn't end up coming through our process. This is the work that we do on the front end of the funnel. So we have a very strict process within our organization. We see ourselves as a little bit later players in the ecosystem. So if you're just starting a business right now, you're not a good fit for us. If you're 2 years into your business, if you don't have $500,000 in revenue, you're still not a good fit for us. We really like to be the player that's an alternative to VC funding. There is some VC funding that's good, but VC funding is limited. And some entrepreneurs are not interested in going the VC route anymore, just as they're not interested in going public anymore, which is an interesting trend we've seen a lot of recently. So we look to help support companies that are not interested in going that route, that have at least 6 months of runway in the bank, that have at least $500,000 in revenue, that are looking to streamline their fundraising process. So you can think of us as a service for fundraising. So there's lots of different groups that play in the ecosystem. So up in Seattle, I think we have 5 core groups and other funds, and they're all really important to everything we do, because I'm not going to write them a check at the ideation stage. It's not who I am. But there are groups out there that will, and so we need those people in the entire ecosystem helping to get these companies off the ground. We need those people to help advise them in what they're doing, because I'm sorry if there's any attorneys in the room, I really don't want to see any attorneys on your advisory board. Like, if you come through, like, please don't have that. Maybe if you're a fund, there's a good reason for that, but if you're a business, I just see those attorneys as charging you capital to get business advice, which is not usually sound. It's usually better to talk to the experienced entrepreneurs who have been there, done that. So we have a 4-stage process for our companies. We have 4 committees: technology, real estate, impact, and life sciences. And of that, the companies apply to us. We have about 30 to 50 companies reach out to us every month. And they're from all over. We're sector agnostic, we're region agnostic. We have a complete diversification model, and because our organization is a global organization, we actually have feet on the ground in those other areas. And so that's really important to us as a network, because there's always someone that's there to keep an eye on the business, because that's usually one of the main concerns with investor networks, is that, I want to be there, I want to be close to where the company is, I want to make sure that my investment is sound and secure, and the entrepreneurs are able to go tackle and do the things they want to do. But we have that network, and so we're able to leverage that a lot better. So the committees look at it. These are industry experts that spend time on these committees and take a deep dive into the technology, or if it's a medical device, what that looks like, and the predicate devices, and if they're going to clinical trials, where they're at in that process, and they choose to either advance the companies on or not. From there, there's deal screening. And so deal screening occurs every month. We have 6 to 8 companies come to deal screening. We have about 20 investors in the room. They're our most active investors, and we have 10 different metric points that we grade these companies on. And all the feedback the whole time is given to the entrepreneurs, because everything we want to do is support what they're doing, whether they're a good fit for us or not. So all the questions asked, all the critiques, all the positives, everything that we like, all of this information is given back to the entrepreneurs. At deal screening, we then give them also their graded out points on what that looks like in terms of the 10 different metrics, and we invite, delay, or deny these companies. And if they are delayed, they do have to come back to deal screening to get invited through. But the reason why our funding rate is as high as it is because our investor members actually see these companies ahead of time, and they want these companies to come through the process. They want to see how they do. So if the companies are invited through, Roger, that is when you pay, because I am not a charity. It costs a ton of money to throw 10 events over the course of a week. And so the fee actually does a few different things. One, it makes sure that the right company is there. If you don't have the capital to pay me to do this, to streamline the process, you're not a good fit for me. So it really helps to alleviate that. 2, it helps to pay for my full-time staff. I have 5 full-time individuals that work with me to support our companies. An entrepreneur director, a membership director, an events director, a due diligence director. We have a team of interns, and then we kind of cross over into the capital fund a little bit. So, that also, human capital is expensive. And these are high-end events. We print out all the materials. All the company has to do is show up and pitch. We also provide coaching and everything along the way. to make sure. I was telling Brian earlier today, I am a stickler on company presentations. I'm actually teaching a presentation training tomorrow. It's free. It's a webinar. If you want more information and you have the ability to tune in, I'll be doing it from my hotel room right across the way here. But you can learn a little bit about what I've learned in 15 years of listening to companies not be able to articulate their value proposition, and how to actually do it in a way of what I'm looking for, because why you start your business and why I invest in your business are actually two completely different things. So it's being able to mend those together. From our investment forums, which is 5 cities, 5 days. So we go to Tacoma, Vancouver, BC, Bellevue, Seattle, and we finish in Portland. We gather all the interest feedback. We gather all the comments, the positives, the critiques, the questions, and then that's handed off to our due diligence director. And then we have a very deep dive into due diligence. It's a painstaking process. I'm not gonna say it's fun. And depending on how the CEO chooses to run it, it can last anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. So, but it's a great opportunity for the CEO to actually show up, show the investors how they show up, build relationships with the investors, because at the end of the day, that's all you're doing as an entrepreneur, is you are building a relationship with these investors. You are demonstrating that you have the competency to take this the distance and to deliver them a return. So it's all relationship based, which is why everything happens in person. And so from the DD process, then we were able to then syndicate out the deal to other chapters, which can give entrepreneurs access to other types of capital, other types of investors, other types of connections to help further the growth of the business. So these are all things that are critically important, but we don't do it alone. We do it by working together. And we're just, we're here to help, and we're here to make sure that the people who are participating in this are doing the best they can do to not lose money, because the ecosystem moves by capital in, capital out. So a lot of what I do is I coach entrepreneurs on making sure that they should actually be raising money to begin with. I'm a firm believer in bootstrapping. I think there's a lot of value in being able to bootstrap and hold on to as much ownership in that business as you can, because you're working your butt off for it and you've got the passion behind it. And so if you don't have the need to sell off your business for capital, fantastic. That's great. Also, if you don't, want to streamline your fundraising process and want to go meet with 50 investors and have coffee with every one of them, great too. That's awesome. Whatever works for you with what you need to do, the reality is it costs money to raise money. And it doesn't matter if you're looking at money in course of time, because time we're never going to get back, or if you're looking at money in terms of coffee and what that adds up to be in the long run, and what it takes to build these relationships. But that's really a core nutshell of what I do. So in 2018, like I said, we funded 78 companies, 54 million, 70% funding rate. 2017, we funded 63 companies, 43 million. And I don't know what we did in 2016 because it's really before my time. And so I wasn't involved too much in the business, on the actual business side of it. I was involved as a member for that period of time. So, we're number one in the world, and we're not number one because we suck at what we do. We're number one because we're actually really good at what we do, and we value our members and what they bring to the table, and what they do to really help support the growth of these early stage companies, because you all need help. We all need help. And to the entrepreneurs in the room, please don't act like you have all the answers, because we don't actually expect you to. We actually look for things that we can help with, and that's really important for what we're doing to give back to the community. So before I wrap up here, I just would like to leave you with one little thing. And this is, for me, how I show up every day is how I show up. You get the honest truth. You might not like it. It is what it is. I got 3 young kids. I got a lot to do. I got a future for them to try and think about. But if you be kind and you're always curious, you will win. And there is definite value in that. So stroke your curiosity, and with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions that you may have. And as you think about your questions, I would encourage you to be selfish. What do you really want? What do you really want to know? Pick my brain, and I will do my best to answer it. Because if I can't, then I'll tell you I can't. I'm not going to fake it, you know. But we'll go over here. And do I need to repeat? I think I need to repeat the question into the microphone. All right.
How do you define impact investing?
That's a great question. So the question is, how do we define impact investing? So everybody defined impact investing differently. Life science investing for me is not impact investing, although it might be considered impact investing to others. For me, impact investing is the 4 Ps. It's profits, it's people, it's planet, and it's progress. And so I usually define it in the bottom line. Most companies on the stock exchange have a single bottom line. All you hear about is their quarterly profits. That is what you're looking at, their revenues. But if you have a double, triple, or quadruple bottom line company, that is what I would consider an impact company, depending on varying degrees of that. Questions? Yes?
What is the high end of annual revenue and the low end of annual revenue of the typical companies that you guys help to fund?
That's a good question. So it's asking kind of the range of revenue. So I would say the low end of revenue is about 500,000. You know, and for us that shows that there's a market and that people care about this, and it's really growth capital is what they're looking for. On the high end, I mean, we just had a company come through at our expo a few weeks ago. They had 7 million in revenue and a 12 million pre, which is actually pretty good. So it varies. I look at so many deals, I actually can't remember too far into the past. 7 million is the highest, I'm going to say that for right now, that I can remember in the near future, because I look at a lot of different companies, and it all blends together over a period of time. In the back.
If you talk about your
No, that's you.
fee structure, and then how do you get into that webinar tomorrow?
Okay, so the fee structure is $12,500 to come through our process. So that's after you've been through deal screening and have been invited to come through. The webinar tomorrow is at 10 a.m. and if you go to k4northwest.com, it's an any meeting webinar and you can sign into the link there. Yes.
Are you looking to expand those 5 cities to Bend?
You know, we've talked about it in the past. I think that there was an event done here a number of years ago with my husband and one of his former business partners. I don't know when that was, but it was a while back. We just created a platform. So aside from when the companies come through our process, we actually have an app. And the app ties together the entire global community. So the company information goes out onto the app as well. The documents, the presentation deck, the ability to sign up and communicate with the entrepreneur. We have been looking at expanding that platform. And with the introduction of blockchain and everything that's happening with the innovation there, I actually see the realm of investing changing a lot. I see access to capital changing a lot over the next few years. And so I see there being a way to be able to mobilize what we do through that global platform to be able to allow access to opportunities to people who are in remote cities. For me, in terms of bandwidth, there is no way I can add a 6th day into my roadshow. I love what I do. It's tons of fun. It is exhausting 10 months out of the year to go to 5 cities in 5 days. It's a long week. So it's a lot of energy that goes into putting on the events and everything that goes into it and supporting entrepreneurs. So that's the short answer of what I have, is that I think that technology will be a vehicle to help us be able to bring in more investors in outside areas to help participate. Yes?
You mentioned the importance of team. How do you measure how quality of team is?
So the question is how do I measure the quality of team? Time. It's by conversations. It's by asking hard questions. It's by watching what they do in front of the room when they get posed a hard question. We don't deal with cocky CEOs. Cocky CEOs don't make it through our process. They just don't. My investors will have none of it. Doesn't matter how great their product is. They don't want to work with them. And so really being able to get to know people. So there's a company I just invested in December. It's called Vita Inclinata. It's a fascinating technology. They utilize drones to help stabilize the bottom load of helicopters for the helicopters so they don't swing. And I came across this company in May, and I really liked it. It was like a fascinating business plan. I look at so many of them and they're formulaic after a while. It's like, okay, it's another SaaS platform, or it's another medical device, or that's going to do this. But this one was just completely different, and I was like, wow, this is cool. But the CEO was like super cocky, and I was like, oh, I don't like him. And so, I mean, at one point, I had a conversation with him, and I'm trying to ask him some really hard questions, and he's got an answer for everything. And I finally was just like, you got an answer for everything, so what do you need from me? So why do you want my capital, and what do you need from me? Because you clearly know it all. And he was able to give me an answer. And what I was able to figure out over that 6-month period of diligencing him is that he's swimming with some big sharks. And I mean, billion-dollar companies and OEMs and whatnot across the world. And so he has to like put up this persona, and he's green. There's so many things that he just doesn't know about operating a business. So he puts up all these walls and these personas. But once you're able to start breaking that down, then you're actually able to get to the nitty-gritty of like what he needs and what he needs help with. So it took time. You know, another thing I look for in team is experience. It's really important. A lot of the CEOs that we help support have done this before. There's a reason why they come to us. There's a reason why they see value in paying the fee, is because they've had an exit or two, and they understand that fundraising is a full-time job. And when you're fundraising, you have a very difficult time actually working on your business. And so, you know, we try to help streamline that process so the entrepreneur can get back to doing what they do best, and that's running their business and growing that and hopefully providing a return. More questions, come on. Any other? One more? No one? Okay.
What's your favorite company? Pick a favorite. Pick a favorite.
I'm gonna pick, it's Vita Inclinata. Like seriously, like look them up. What's my favorite company so far? And it's my latest investment, which is Vita Inclinata. I think what they're doing is really cool. And they have bootstrapped it. They built this company off of $113,000. To start, and they have been able to do a lot with that, including getting a CRADA through the U.S. Army, which has been big. So I'm really excited about the work that they're doing, and I'm very bullish on them. So thank you so much for your time. You guys have been great.